Akira.
Have you any hobbies?
My hobbies are fast cars and fast women.
Hobbies are healthy. They teach you things.
Are you ready? Are you ready?
Welcome, everybody, back to Around the UFL. The final week of the regular season is behind us. We've got a full panel today and a lot to discuss. Guys, I genuinely can't believe that we're already at the end of the regular season. This season flew by, man. A lot of fun, a lot of giggles along the way, a lot of really interesting discussions, and some teams that really disappointed So plenty to get into. But before we get into all the good stuff, got to go around the horn as always. To my right, it is the man himself, the ref. How you doing today, man?
I'm living the dream because I got big news, big news, huge news, world-altering news that's going to change your life. You had a bad day, you're going to have a good day. And I have a feeling we're going to end up talking about it before I even want to talk about it. But I have it. I'm telling you, you're all going to be as excited about this news as possible. Even Ducky's even going to talk about this news. I'll tell you what.
Oh, really?
Yep. You'll
Okay.
like it.
Well, very interesting on that note, Ducky, the man, the myth, the legend. How's it going?
Yeah, good. I've got interesting news to talk about with ref, apparently.
Oh boy, Jake, the man, the Michigan Panthers man. Not a great ending to the week, but I'm sure you'd rather lose today, or excuse me, this week than next weekend. So how's it going?
It's going good. Yeah, I mean, 7-3, best the previous 2 seasons combined. So and then Saturday didn't end up with that, but I'd rather not face a angry Mules team anyway. So,
I think Jake's recording on
looking forward to Saturday
iPhone or something. I don't know what's going on over there, but glad to have you with us, Jake, as always. And then finally, last but not least, we've got a very special guest today, James Baker, Mr. #Free15. How you doing today?
Doing good, man. Chilling. Can't win the championship every year, but we got to Cancun a couple weeks early, so we'll hold it down for everybody else.
Bob Stoops is enjoying that quicker trip to Cancun this year.
He's already there.
I think he was there middle of the season. I don't know, but anyways, and it was an interesting week 10. We had every single game come down to the wire, all of them one score, 3 of them decided by 1 point. So that was very, very unique to watch, especially, we saw some chatter online, people being like, these final couple weeks don't matter. The playoffs are already set. Why tune in? I don't know about you, ref, but I thought that the quality of football was pretty damn good. And we had a lot of fun matchups this weekend. Even the Toilet Bowl, that was a fun game.
I mean, it may have been fun. But I didn't like the
wait
end.
a minute. I called on the wrong person.
Yeah, I mean, it was a great game and all. We'll get into it in the power rankings a little bit more, but man, here I was all amped up as number 1 pick. Yeah, I have my thoughts on who would have been making the number 1 pick and how good or bad that could have gone, but that was here nor there. I just wanted the pick, and we could deal with the rest later. But anyway, yeah, does anyone else want to speak on the final game? The rest of the games are great. I loved them. I thought they were pretty fun. 1-point games, 3 1-point games. Should have been 4.
I guess to open up the show, anyone have any just initial thoughts or any takeaways from this week before we get into power rankings?
Sad ending to Ref's Law this week. Didn't quite play out.
We're going to get to that.
I think you owe Arlington an apology, James.
Wait, which James?
You.
I think
not the Arlington fan.
Yeah, I made some comments on this show a few weeks ago. I'm sure those have been erased off the internet by now, so nothing for me to worry about.
Of course.
But look, I mean, the Renegades, they're a team we never denied their talent. It was just their execution was lacking. And I think that was the most frustrating thing watching that team is knowing that they had Luis Perez, who ends up leading the UFL in like every single passing category. They have an offense that was one of the best in the league. The defense just dropped off so dramatically from a season ago. And the coaching decisions, man, some of them, I mean, James, I know you can relate, especially watching this team all year. Lack of execution, just a stupid self-inflicted wounds. Jake's Panthers probably wouldn't have won that game in week 6 if it wasn't for a couple of those boneheaded mistakes down the stretch of that game, and so many examples we can go into that. But hey, Arlington got the win. They actually finally closed out a game for one, so that was nice to see from the Renegades. James, what were your takeaways from this weekend? Anything stick out at you?
I gotta say that Renegades Defenders game was the best way to cap off a Renegade season. We thought we were going to lose the game like 6 times. We ended up somehow winning the game. It was a disaster all around. mistakes. Luis had an amazing game, but then everybody else kind of trailed off. It's just everything that could go wrong went wrong, but then everything that could go right went right, which is the Arlington Renegades. We're going to put up 35 points, and we're still probably going to lose. But this time we got to send DC back home crying for a second year in a row.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting that DC and Arlington, the last 2 seasons, they finished their seasons playing against each other. Just last year was the XFL championship, and this year it was the battle of who was the worst team in the XFL conference, basically. And Renegades, look, I'm with you. I thought 100% Arlington was losing that game when Juwan Manigo decides to take the ball into the end zone himself for safety. I've never seen that. That was like the most Arlington possible thing ever. I don't even know how to explain that play. Like he picks
in
up the
week
ball
11, we'll learn the rules.
And his knee was in the end zone, and he thought that he was making a touchback, but he basically downed the ball in the end zone for a safety. And I was shocked. I was shocked that the Arlington defense got to stop there because I thought it was over.
Well, he was trying to do that smart heads-up play, like where you get the kick out of bounds, but that didn't exactly work like that.
No, it's not the same thing when you're inbounds.
No, not exactly. Yeah.
So unfortunate. I mean, I love Juwan Manigo. I think he's a guy that could get an NFL look depending on how you look at things. I mean, he played well on special teams, one of the most dynamic returners in the league. But Chris, that's a classic.
But yeah,
we're already off to a banging start.
Trying to get on an NFL squad. I'll say that you look good all year long, but whenever a coach looks up your name, that's going to be number one, which pops up.
Yeah, unfortunate there for Manigo. That's a tough one. But I mean, if we want to jump into power rankings here, I don't see why not, because there's plenty to discuss, and I am a little interested and intrigued by some rankings from our PFN staff here, where San Antonio and Michigan are above the St. Louis Battlehawks. What are some of your guys' immediate thoughts on that one?
Well, what's funny is as I was looking at these power rankings, I was like, gee, what did I put? Because this doesn't feel right to me. But now I'm curious to see if I put the same.
Yeah, I did not put the Brahmas over the sort of things on my power rankings. I respected the 2-0, but I did have the Mules and Panthers 1 and 2 though.
Same. And let me explain myself, at least on that side. I think Birmingham and Michigan definitely look like the more complete teams this weekend. St. Louis, AJ McCarron does not look the same with that injury that's plagued him since he returned. He does not have the same mobility. He's not comfortable throwing off that back foot. Like, he just clearly doesn't have the confidence that he's had all year. And it's strange to watch AJ kind of doubting himself when he's back there in the pocket, but that's what it looked like against San Antonio's defense. And now the Brahmas, on the other hand, it's very likely that they're without Chase Garbers for this playoff run. So we'll see how that shakes out, but he was in street clothes in that second half after re-injuring that wrist. So for me, it's not a matter of, looking at the season and how these teams played. It's now looking at the injuries where Battlehawks quarterback is at 50% probably, Chase Garbers probably is out, and you're looking at Michigan and Birmingham. I think that gives them the edge, although the Panthers also now have a little twist at quarterback, which we'll get into in a little bit, but Bryce Perkins potentially not able to play in that playoff game.
Yeah,
he was a little week early jumping into the leaping into the playoffs. We should just say that.
So I had to double check. So I did verify. So I have Birmingham 1, Michigan 2, St. Louis 3, and San Antonio 4. And I'm actually shocked that 4 people picked San Antonio 1. Now here for the reasons that you mentioned. Garbers injured, right? Could he be next week? I don't know. We'll see. But he's out. They lost the game to the Battlehawks. Close game. And Ducky, you're going to hate this. I know you're going to hate it. I got to give Coach Beck credit because that was one hell of a challenge. We've seen these super challenges throughout the year. This is probably the most effective one that I've seen made. It went outside
especially compared to the one
bounds.
CJ Johnson makes, but
Everybody gets lucky.
So I got to give them a little bit of credit there. They pulled the game out. They're gonna potentially have that home stretch. I mean, it comes down to this weekend. But I was looking at who are the fools that have San Antonio at number 1 and Ducky. I can't. How? I'm shocked.
Oh,
Shocked.
are you outing me in my rankings?
Oh, sorry. Are we not supposed to do that?
No, you're good. You're good. Yeah, I got the Brahmas
Ducky
number 1.
exposed.
I put the Brahmas number 1.
I'm curious. What do you think they're gonna? If they make it to the playoffs, they have a chance of beating the Panthers or the Stallions?
I think it'll be Brahmas Panthers. I don't think it'll be an upset championship. I love the Stallions. I love the players, but I think the Panthers want it more.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say this: the Stallions don't look. Oh God, they're gonna get me for this one. They're gonna be mad at me.
Luke is watching right now.
We're certified Stallions haters over here.
No. It'll be a close game. It's not.
Expert.
It's hard to beat a team 3 times in one season.
Especially when they're. I mean,
we can
Mahler's
get
did
into
it last year, but Mahler's did it last year to the Panthers, but this is a decidedly different Panthers team this year. But yeah, I'm going to stick with what I said. At least one of the number 2 seeds is going to win this weekend. Ideally, I'm rooting for both. Obviously, Panthers for one, and then I'd love to see the Brahmas, get in and play them again. I think that'd be a good rematch there. But yeah, I think all 4 are super close. There's a lot of parity there. I think it's anybody's, but I definitely think the Panthers might have an edge in the desire, but they need to actually learn how to finish games and not shoot themselves in the foot by stupid penalties.
I'll save my thoughts on that for a little bit later in the show because I want to talk a little bit more in depth on a couple of things. But James, your Renegades finished at 5, and that's where I had them. I truly think that they were the best team that's not in the playoffs, just looking at the way they played these last couple weeks. But what are your thoughts? I know you didn't have a vote in these power rankings. I apologize. Maybe next season, though, you join the team.
Yeah, so got to clarify, I had nothing to do with these power rankings because I'm not sure what's going on here. But when making power rankings, I would assume that you guys focus on the head-to-head, right? For the most part, one to 2 teams.
Well, you got to take it into consideration. But for me, I look at kind of who's hotter, and I think like the playoff committee does in college league, you got to take the roster into effect. If you lose a QB or something, you're obviously not as good. So there's a lot of things, but head-to-head is a small part, but it's not my main focus, at least for me.
Because I just think it's interesting because the Renegades were a game-winning field goal away from beating the St. Louis Battlehawks. And in their second matchup, they beat them again, and we close out the year with wins. So, I mean, we end the year on a hot streak, and we should have beat them twice. I'm just saying, for power rankings, I know it's not the standings, but I feel like Renegades, we ended the year as a top 4 team.
I'll allow that because then that says that the Roughnecks beat a top 4 team. So you know what? I'll allow it.
I still don't know what happened that day.
I'm not letting a team that scored on themselves be in the top 4.
Yeah, I don't know about that one, James. I love the dedication to the bit, though. I'll tell you that much.
I will say, though, I think that Michigan right now is one of the strongest overall teams. Stallion's been struggling a little bit on defense. I feel like if they get those issues ironed out, we've seen them. They're a top team in this league. So I have no issues keeping them at number 1. San Antonio at 2. I mean, it really depends on what quarterback we get out there. And I mean, it could be Quentin Dormady, but it depends on what kind of Quentin Dormady we're getting. Because I mean, he's either hot or he's cold, but they do have the playmakers to make a splash.
It's going to be interesting, and we have plenty to talk about here down the stretch of this episode when it comes to the next season matchups and what we're going to see and potential injuries, potential players coming back. To kind of wrap up this power ranking segment, your Roughnecks started the season at the 8th seed, and they finished the season at the 8th seed. This can be a little therapy session for you. Just let it all out, Ref.
I mean,
okay.
The good news is next season we're going to go 12-0. This was a clerical error somewhere along the way. I get it. The league, I don't know what it was. I will say this. I think part of this is the refs are out at these games, and then they look in the crowd and they see me with a ref shirt on. They're like, how dare he? Oh, yeah. You think it's funny? Flag, flag, flag. Oh, you got a touchdown? You got the lead? No, you didn't. Flag. These refs, don't make me come out on the field. I've threatened it long enough. We have a whole season next year. I'll do it.
I feel like in that Memphis-Houston game, you probably could have just gone out there with the whistle.
I'm telling you, there's a couple times I think I could have did it in a few locations. There in Houston last year, the lady was like, "You don't need a pass," and I was like, "What?" And she's like, "The officials don't need a pass." I'm like, I'm in like blue shorts and a $10 referee shirt with no logo on it. So yeah, I probably could have.
I'm sure AJ Smith would have loved that if you went out there and said that Donald Payne couldn't play, but that's a whole other conversation for another time. Last thoughts for me on the power rankings, really quick. It was nice to see the Memphis Showboats finally get a win. Who would have thought that a team that started Josh Love in the 2024 season would get a win? But here we are. I mean, I thought Love played pretty well. One of his best games of his spring ball career, if you can even say that. Completed most of his passes, did enough to get the win. Darius Victor, vintage performance, couple touchdowns. But, if we're being honest, Memphis, Houston, I'm not expecting a lot of these players to be back for that team next year. Both of them are probably going to clean house. And James, if I'm being honest, I hope Arlington cleans house at least to an extent when it comes to, especially that backfield.
Yeah.
Oh, but speaking of Love's performance, it is fitting that it was against a CJ coached Houston team, the same team or the same, gamblers roster that he put up 91% completion percentage last year on. So, yeah.
Josh Love 2-0 against CJ Johnson. If you're CJ Johnson and you're 0-2 against Josh Love, I think that's a clear sign that you might not be cut out for coaching in spring football. But that's just me.
Let's also not forget, although he didn't start in the game, Josh Love is a toilet bowl veteran. He was there with the Michigan Panthers in 2022 in the toilet bowl. So maybe he learned a thing or two along the way.
That was the Paxton Lynch legacy game, not going to lie.
That game, yeah, he went. That was
275 yards, 3 touchdowns.
Everybody was hoping to see that at the beginning of the season, and we didn't get it. We got it. And that just shows, though, again, what you would expect, this game should have been complete garbage. And was it the greatest game? No, it was not. But there was definitely excitement. It came down to the wire. It came down to the last play for the Roughnecks, and they couldn't get it done. They just couldn't get it done. And the coaching, they just got out-coached. If you put Flip next to CJ, as much as I don't want to say it, CJ, I heard it in the crowd. Every game I went to in Houston everybody was basically, what is this guy doing? What are we doing here? I will give him credit. They did try a couple new things. Justin Hall, they were feeding the ball to Hall all day, which is good and bad. It makes it a little bit predictable. But the Memphis defense, you know what? They did the thing that they couldn't do all year, and that was shut down the running game. And they were able to effectively shut down Mark Thompson. And so when you got to feed the ball to one guy throughout the whole game, at halfway through the game, I could tell you, okay, this is a lost cause. Now, I will say there was a quick bit where it looked like the Roughnecks might stage a comeback. They tied it up. They even were in the lead for a second until that flag came out. But nope. It is what it is.
Well, at least now Houston has experience in the toilet bowl for next year, so things should go better.
Any last thoughts on the power rankings here before we move on?
Other than St. Louis being too high, no.
So so who would you put at 4 if it's not the Renegades? It's not the Battlehawks. I assure you it's not DC.
I just leave it empty. Battlehawks at 9. And the rest of the list is fine.
I'll allow it.
Hater.
This is the final
What a hater.
show of the regular season. Now we get to playoffs next week, but big news,
Ref,
guys.
this feels like a good intermediary point before we get to predicting some things for this playoff weekend. You've got some news, and
Dude,
I
this
guess
is
Ducky's in on it too.
Crazy news. Well, Ducky isn't in on it. He's just going to be so amped that he's going to want to talk. That's all I'm saying. Like, people are like, why is Ducky so
I'm going to
quiet?
want to talk.
This
Okay.
is the news that's going to wake Ducky up. That popcorn's going to go flying.
I love that, Jake.
This is crazy news. So we just talked about it, the toilet bowl. Michigan lost this week. Everybody was pinging me online. Refs law. That means the Roughnecks are getting the number 1 pick. I believed it too. And I'll be honest, at the end of that game, I was shattered. I was broken, beaten up, broken down, battered, all of it. And I was curious. And so I did a little bit of research. And what I found out is even more intriguing than what we thought it was. So let me remind you before we get into what I found. So going into this game, refs law was at 88.888 repeating percent on the season, with the chance to go back-to-back 90% on the season. What would you say if I told you that refs law was actually 100% accurate last season and this season, and actually 90% accurate in season 1 of the USFL, which I never looked at? Hear me out, guys. I went back and I found the original reference to refs law. And here's what it is. I said that Houston and Michigan cannot win in the same weekend. I didn't say that if one wins, the other loses. The original statement was what neither could win in the same weekend. And if we look at it from that parameters, 100% last year, 100% this year, and the only time that these two damn teams can win on the same weekend was week 10 of 2022. One of them being the toilet bowl, which leaves us actually at 3 seasons worth of refs law being at 96.666 repeating percent over 3 years. 100% last year, 100% this year. Better record than the Birmingham Stallions.
The ultimate spin cycle.
Spin cycle? This is the truth. I have been looking at the wrong parameters the whole time. When you put it under the correct lens of what refs law is, it's not. I'm correcting the record. Now, I'll say this. Please, for the love of God, end refs law. Please, 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 please. Let us win some games. We can win them all as long as they're not against each other. So let's do that. Maybe we split them on the season. Please, I'm not even trying to make it a spin to make it a good thing. I want it to go away. But since we're here, 100%.
Bring that request to PR, see what they say.
I mean, they should get on this. This is a stat. How have 2 teams not won on a single weekend except for once in the last 3 years? How?
Except for week 10 of 2022. That's crazy.
The poopiest week of them all.
That was the week where you had the toilet bowl, and then you had the Gamblers beat the Breakers because the Breakers had clinched and they benched Kyle Sloter. Well, they didn't bench. They just rested Kyle Sloter. And they started, I think, Zach Smith at quarterback.
So that was the last time. Again, so record has been corrected. I'm as shocked as everybody. I was so beaten up last night, and I was like, I got to go find the original reference. I was going to have like a stroll down memory lane, and I was going to be sad about it. When I heard it, I was like, oh, my God. And I immediately went, and I was like, okay, when's the last time that they won together? Because I figured maybe it happened. We only won. Well, I guess you guys only won, what, 2? Michigan only won 2 games in 2022? So I was like,
2 games,
there's 2 opportunities. One of them happened. That still blows me away. So let it be known, you can go pick up your refs law gear over at the merch store. There's a link down below. And while you're at it, make sure you go pick up that Ducky gear because we got 2 weeks left? Yeah. 2 weeks left. And after 2 weeks, that merch is going away. People got all hot and bothered and angry last year when we took down the merch. Well, you snooze, you lose. And just the longer you take to buy the merch, the more food you're keeping out of hungry families' mouths. Just know that. This is a fact.
Feed the kids.
Yeah. What are you,
Feed America.
Peter? Yeah, exactly. We're solving world hunger with feeding America. Anyway,
Well,
what do you guys
ref
think about
law.
this news? Is this not life altering news? We were all about, oh my God, ref's law, it's finally broken. Little did I know, it's much worse than I ever thought it was.
I need
I'm
a whole
starting to think
ESPN
that
betting segment on this. Like I'm thinking, like right during a touchdown call, probably we need to focus on this.
Did you know ref's
law? 100%. We got to get Lowell on there, and the ref's law has hit.
You can tell we have an XFL fan on the show when they start talking about betting.
Yep. Hey, got to dig ourselves out of that $60 million hole somehow.
Yeah, James, what was the plus minus on Holden Allers getting more than one snap this year?
I don't want to talk about it. I don't know what that man did to Bob Stoops, but we're not going to talk about it.
Well, I'm curious, since you're here, right? There's been talk. Was that Luis Perez's last game? If so, do you think we'll see him back next year and hopefully get a chance to play?
I mean, I think that was his last game because it's kind of been rumored for a while now. And that's kind of how I'm coping with the fact that he got 100% of the reps in the last game is that, it's his last game, let him go out. But knowing Stoops, I don't know. Luis may be here for the next decade playing every single snap of every single game. And I don't know, maybe we'll see Lindsey Scott get to run twice for a 5-yard gain, but we'll never see him pass the ball because, I mean, that's Luis's job. We'll ride or die with Luis and into 3-7.
Well, let me ask you this. If they trade your guy to, let's say, the Houston Roughnecks, are you going to switch teams?
No.
Oh.
Not why.
I need to start a campaign.
I would be happy for Holton, but also a little bit sad because I feel bad at what he's going into. Honestly, he's a smart guy. He'd probably say no. I'd stand behind him for that.
I think you just retire at that point.
I'd collect inactive pay on Arlington rather than starting for Houston.
That's rough, man. That's rough in a bad way, not in a rough 'em up way either.
That's rough,
oh,
buddy.
Man. Well, looking ahead a little bit to next week here, we've got games that we saw this past weekend that we're going to see again, with the postseason being San Antonio matching up against St. Louis, Birmingham matching up against Michigan. And, man, it is tough to predict these outcomes because these teams are so closely matched. Like, I know we could go on and on about the discussions between 1, 2, 3, and 4 in our power rankings, but if we're being honest, you could kind of make cases for almost any team. I mean, I still think Birmingham is the number 1. They're 9-1. They've been the most consistent team this year, but 2, 3, and 4, you can make cases for either one of those teams. And to win the championship, I mean, you can make a case. Any one of these 4 teams, if they get hot, I mean, James, we saw it with your Renegades last year, right? They weren't the best team in the XFL.
Can do it.
I mean, I know James is going to probably hate me for saying that, but they just got hot at the right time and made things happen.
Thanks,
so
Wayne.
I feel like that could absolutely happen again this year, depending on how things play out. And also, it's a good thing we don't have any 4 and 6 teams in the playoffs because that was a real shame a season ago. I think I might get blocked by James Baker now.
Maybe. I'm hovering over the button right now.
Leaving.
He just takes over as the host. All right. Yeah. The true James has taken over.
James is going to start tweeting with fake proof that all of James's articles are AI. And he's just going to cancel James.
I forgot that was you. Yeah.
The Renegades are undefeated after receiving their championship rings. So if we were running like how the USFL got the Stallions the rings before the season, we didn't have that proper end of last season to start the new season. So this has all been preseason. So
there you go.
I just take that.
I mean, that logic holds air to me. That feels right. That does feel right. I mean, the Stallions got an unfair advantage by getting their rings at the beginning of the year, whereas the XFL left their championships hanging on to week 7?
And I'm sure there's negotiations, Arlington gets the UFL hub. They'll let Birmingham into the playoffs. There's some backdoor dealings going on, but it's okay. Next year.
I want to know why the Arlington mayor never dressed up in a Stallions uniform because he had. Oh, can't talk about that.
Mayor Ross is a man of his word.
Well, maybe he did. He
Totally.
just never released the pictures. There's a holdup. Those Getty people aren't releasing them till the end of the season. Maybe I don't know.
No, you got to pay $500 for each photo or something like that.
It wasn't in the budget.
Yeah. All right, refocusing to these upcoming games here. Starting with Michigan Birmingham. Look, I know there are certain people that aren't happy with the fact that the Stallions aren't seen as the clear favorite in this game. But I think it's fair to say that this is a matchup that could go either way depending on which version of each team we see, right? We've seen the Birmingham Stallions look a little bit vulnerable these last couple of weeks. They lost to San Antonio. They didn't play a great game against Houston, even though they won that game. The defense faltered. Now they're missing John Chavis, who's confirmed by Luke Miller. He's out for the rest of the season. So that, we're looking here where Michigan played a really good first half offensively. Second half, Bryce Perkins goes down. They shot themselves in the foot with a lot of penalties. And now we're in a position, which version of Michigan are we going to get? Are we going to get the Panthers from the last few weeks where they're playing really clean football? Or are we going to get the Panthers that in the second half where you have 10 penalties, 80 yards, shooting yourself in the foot?
I think they're going to get shook because I think Skip Holtz and the Stallions. See, this is where I win all my Stallions fans back. But I think the Skip Holtz and the Stallions were toying with the Panthers. I even think the broadcast team brought it up, but it's a true point, right? You look at the Stallions' first drive. Boom, come in, score. They go dormant for the rest of the half. Second half starts. What do? First drive, come in, score. Boom. And then they kind of go dormant until the rest of the half until what do they need to do? Score at the end and win. The Stallions didn't do themselves any favor. You said it right there. Is the penalties kind of killed them at the end there. But I think, I don't know, I feel like the Stallions might be holding back a bit. I wouldn't be, I just won't be shocked.
I will say,
if the Stallions are in the championship.
They definitely were holding Adrian Martinez back because he was hardly running the ball. They kept him in the pocket. It made sense. They wanted to try to protect him. Granted, that led to 5 sacks for Michigan, so that's something to keep an eye on. Can the Panthers defensive line keep that up next week? Here's my take is, if Birmingham can just put the pieces together like they did those first 5, 6, 7 weeks of the season, Michigan's in trouble. Mm-hmm. Because, like I said, I think Michigan should have won this past weekend's game. They were the better team that week. If Jake Bates doesn't hook that field goal from 53 yards out to win it, Michigan clearly wins that game. I mean, in my opinion, they were the better team on the field. Their offense was more consistent. They had more yards. They made more plays. It was just Birmingham. They just find ways to win in those late game situations, and that's what they did. Now, can Birmingham beat Michigan 3 times this year? That's a true test.
Can they do what the Maulers did?
I'll fillet the Birmingham's fan base a little bit. They are the best team. They should be the odds-on favorite, and for a reason. I'll give them credit there. But here's where we'll draw the ire. They're not invincible. They are mortal. Obviously, we saw San Antonio beat them. I mean, you had Colin Bauer having Javin White and Bryce Herndon just flying all around the field and getting to Martinez. I don't know. I'm sure both teams held back a little bit. I know Bauer was talking about they were giving, Holtz and the Stallions offense a bunch of different looks. I don't know if he's just doing that to give them nightmares for this week, to kind of get them some extra stuff to think about, or if the Panthers are really trying super hard. If the Panthers were giving their all and they fell flat like that, then it's all over. Then it is going to be the Stallions back in the championship. But if they didn't need the game like Birmingham did for the mentality, but also I'm glad now we don't have an angry Mules fan team come in and having be like, we lost 2 games in a row for the first time ever, since returning back in 2022. So hopefully that kind of makes them a little more docile. Hopefully Nolan and Bauer make the adjustments, and Belfay make the adjustments necessary, and then Etling learns not to take stupid sacks, and the offensive line knows to not do stupid penalties when you have a first and goal at the 4-yard line. So clean up some mistakes. I think it's anybody's game, but I'm definitely still a little nervous just because it is Birmingham, but I think it's anybody's game. But I'm going to go Panthers just because I want to, and I'm going to be controversial. But
we saw a couple of pieces missing on both sides. You know, Michigan, Marcus Sims, Matt Colburn, two of their biggest playmakers were not in that game. I mean, that changes the whole dynamic of the game if you have Matt Colburn
And Noah
in there.
Dawkins.
And of course, Marcus Sims on offense. And yeah, Noah Dawkins. And then for Birmingham, they were missing Ricky Person, who's one of the rushing touchdown leaders in the league. They missed DeMarcus Gates and JoJo Tillery defensively. So I'm expecting a higher quality play in these playoffs. I also feel like those couple of games between St. Louis, San Antonio, and then Birmingham, Michigan, they were a little bit sloppier than I expected them to be, especially at this point in the season.
Now, I feel like going into playoffs, it's where mistakes are magnified, and you've got to cut down on the stupid mistakes. And Adrian Martinez, he ran 10 yards backwards out of bounds last week, which to me was one of the most puzzling things I have seen a professional quarterback do. And he also struggled under a lot of pressure at Nebraska. So I'm just saying, if going into the playoffs, he has to cut down on those things. I know Danny Etling will take dumb sacks or overthrow somebody, but he's not actively running out of bounds backwards. And especially if the Stallions were to make the championship game, I mean, you're talking about a crowd of hopefully 40,000 plus in the dome. I wonder how his nerves can handle that, quite honestly.
I thought you said 40,000 in Birmingham, and I was like, I don't know about that this season, but let's not get into that conversation because I'm about to get canceled.
Maybe four.
No, but I think you're right, James. And something that's interesting is, so Danny Etling will be the starting quarterback. Mike Nolan confirmed today. Bryce Perkins, his status is up in the air. I mean, gosh, look, I love the intensity from Bryce, but like, you've got to know better to not make a play like that in a Week 10 game that really doesn't mean much. Like, don't put your body on the line, man. Got to be smarter than that. Because then you got Danny Etling in there. And like you said, Etling has not been perfect. He's had his fair share of mistakes. He completed just 16 of his 31 pass attempts against Birmingham this past week. Had some struggles. And look, there are just certain rhythm throws that he misses horribly. And just like, how do you miss that bad? Like that 3rd and 4 to Trey Quinn down on that final drive, he overthrew him by a mile. Like, and you complete that pass, you pick up the first down, you're giving Jake Bays an easier field goal attempt, and you probably win that game. So those are the sorts of things. Can we see Danny clean that up? And I'm expecting Birmingham's defense to be better this weekend. Again, they were missing a couple of their guys. They've been going through this wild change of events with John Chavis leaving, Corey Chamberlain taking over as defensive coordinator. You bring in Anthony Blevins as a defensive assistant. They've had like a ridiculous amount of moving pieces here. So the Stallions, have they looked a little bit vulnerable these last couple of weeks? Yes, but it's because they've been dealing with all sorts of crazy things going on behind the scenes. So if the Stallions can put the pieces together, I would be worried if I'm Michigan. Like, the Panthers need to be firing. The Panthers need to be at 110% if they want to win this game.
So Ducky,
The silence is fantastic.
But
Yeah,
I'm sorry,
well,
dead air.
Yeah, Ducky. Who do you think's gonna pull this one out? I feel like you think the Panthers are gonna do this.
Yeah, I think the Panthers. I don't think the Panthers are going to lose to a team 3 times in a row, 2 years in a row.
Yeah. Now I'm curious on the flip side of things. How much do you think, and this is just for anybody here, how much do you think it'll impact attendance if St. Louis isn't in the game?
That fan base, I don't think will show up at all. I think you'll see 30K for the championship,
Which is still not.
which is a lot.
Which
but
is good. Yeah.
but
If they're
St.
in,
Louis
you
is
think
in it,
probably
it's sold
50.
out. Yeah.
I mean, I'd give them a little bit of credit. I feel like it's a huge game, and something like a football championship is unattainable to 99% of the population with the Super Bowl. So, I mean, if you're in town, you've been following this league all year, maybe your team lost the playoff game, but I mean, what were the cheapest tickets for like the nosebleeds and for the championship game? You all know?
For this year's game,
For the Super Bowl?
For the for the UFL championship. I know, like the 400s level.
I think it's
Oh.
like $40, $30,
Yeah.
$40,
It's
something
stupid
like
cheap.
that.
Oh,
Yeah.
cheaper than that. It was like $20 probably.
Yeah, and so
So
I'm just
cheap
like,
that Jake just went sideways.
so like, even if they're not in it, yeah, I think it's going to be lower attendance than if the Battlehawks were in. But I still think they're pulling solid numbers with the $20 championship in their hometown.
And what would be interesting to see as well is if Michigan does make it to the championship, that's not a huge trip for I mean, it's a decent sized trip, but I could see it's closer than Birmingham is to St. Louis, so it would be interesting to see how many Panthers fans show up. And we do know the Stallions fans travel really well to championships. They've done that the last couple of years going to Canton. So that's something to keep an eye on. Like, yes, if the Battlehawks go, it'll clearly be dominated by Battlehawks fans. But I do think that there will be a good handful of Panthers or Stallions fans, whoever ends up making it there. But moving on to San Antonio, St. Louis, I was befuddled by a couple of the things that we saw in this game. I know we already touched on it. Chase Garbers goes down with an injury. Now his status is unknown, and I'm really worried for San Antonio if they have Quentin Dormady because he does not know how to put two good games together. At least he hasn't really done that at all this season. He looks a lot like the Quentin Dormady we saw in Orlando last year where he shows flashes where you're like, wow, this guy is really, really good. And then like 3 plays later, he'll just like make one of the worst decisions you've seen. And it's just like, what? Like, why? So against a Battlehawks defense that is surging right now with Donnie Abraham at the helm, I'm worried for San Antonio. They're going back on the road into what's going to be an even tougher environment in St. Louis. Like, this is the first professional playoff game football wise for St. Louis in 20 years? I mean, this is going to be we should get 45, 50K if we're being honest. Like, this should be a legitimately insane crowd.
I hope so. I hope they show up. I hope they support that team. I mean, they've done a pretty good job this season, so I think at worst case we're at least getting 30, right? Worst case. You'd hope we get up to 40. But man, yeah, I mean, that feels like whether your opponent is healthy or not, having that many people in the building is feels like it's going to give you a slight edge. At the same time, man, those people are going to be angry. They are going to be mad if they go to that game and the Battlehawks don't win, especially if it comes down to something with the refs. Only because I feel like a big reason people watch spring football is not a big reason, but maybe partially the reason is they sick and tired of the officiating in the NFL, especially when it gets to the playoffs and that determining who makes it to the next round, let alone to the championship in your home stadium. I'll be honest, part of me wants to see it just to see what happens. But I anticipate that crowd is going to show up and they're going to be loud. And honestly, as it stands now, I feel like the Battlehawks have the edge. They won the last game barely, and it did come down to that super
Garbage out,
challenge.
yes.
Yeah. But I don't know if McCarron is as healthy as maybe they want him to be.
You know what was fascinating in that game too is I don't know if anyone else was paying attention to this, but Anthony Beck talked about this in the media call today. There was a couple questionably dirty plays by San Antonio. There was that one where McCarron's going out of bounds, and you can just walk him out of bounds, and Tease DeBoer just like beelines for McCarron's ankles. And then there's another play where Garrett Nelson had McCarron down on the ground. What do you say, Ducky?
It's football. You're gonna get tackled. Somebody's gonna touch you. It's football.
It looked a little bit too blatant.
They're crybabies. All of St. Louis is crybabies. Their fans.
Listen, this is coming from Switzerland, Ducky.
Their coach, crybaby central. That's why the NFL left there. It's all crybabies.
Ducky. Look, going back to what actually happened in that game, where the second time it happened, where Garrett Nelson kind of just grabbed McCarron's ankle again after McCarron was already down. That one was strange because it almost felt like Garrett didn't know if AJ was actually down or not. Ref, I don't know if you were watching on that specific play, but there was twice, and Anthony talked about it today, like he did his best to give a political answer, but it was clear like he thought that there was something a little extra behind those plays, and it's going to be really interesting to see how that storyline plays out this week because it's the same teams going up against each other, and we know for a fact that AJ McCarron is not going to be at 100% in that game. I mean, this ankle injury is something that's going to plague him the rest of the season. So those are some fun storylines to watch.
It's going to be an exciting weekend. I'll tell you that. The one thing that I'm a little upset by, I guess upset isn't the right word, but I feel like they could have spread out those games, both the games being on one day. I would have loved to see a Saturday game and a Sunday game. I feel like there's probably some analytics behind that, though, right? I'm not crazy. They're both on Saturday, right? Yeah. Oh, okay. Never mind. I am crazy.
I
Don't
was
listen to
gonna
me.
say, I was
Where
like,
did I get
you
that
get
from?
inside
Oh,
scoop
maybe
on
I was.
last
I don't
second
know. I was
change or
going down
what?
memory lane last year, so maybe it was the USFL that did that. Anyway, don't listen to my complaints. Refs law has got me all out of sorts.
No,
I'll
the
tell
USFL
you.
didn't do that either last year. So
Well, whatever. So it happens somewhere.
AAF.
Yeah, I will say
Previews
going back,
were
Yeah,
the
the
same day
AAF
on Saturday this
I'll
past
take
week.
it.
but going back to the AJ injury or potential injury plays, the San Antonio coaching staff, I know from experience, they'll single out a player and they'll go right after him. So I don't
Yeah,
know. Maybe
probably-
it's like that on
Probably the player with a football and they
defensive
tackle him, huh?
Man, I wish I could pull up that AJ Smith clip right now. We are going at Donald Payne.
But as
But
far
no, that
as
clip doesn't exist, guys. It's completely erased
Oh,
from
yeah.
the internet, of course.
Yeah.
will never happen. It was AI generated.
Yeah. Okay, I'm not gonna name who, but there was a coach in this league that when I posted that DM'd me and said, James, that was AI generated, right?
Oh, I love that.
I'm just gonna keep this comment up.
Oh man.
But talking about AJ Smith and the San Antonio offense, I think that them not having Cody Latimer is going to be absolutely huge and crucial. I mean, especially down there in the red zone, you want your big body target. St. Louis has that with Akeem Butler, you're relying on John Trey Kirkland really as your primary pass catcher, and then is Anthony McFarland Jr. going to be back for this game? I believe so. Correct.
He is supposed to be. So the way Wade Phillips kind of worded things last week, it felt like Lovett and McFarland probably could have played if it was the playoff game, but they decided to rest them, which makes sense, get them back to full strength. So hopefully there's no hiccups, and it would seem like those two guys would be back, which is crucial because those are two of the best running backs in this league. And if you're missing Chase Garbers, those are the two guys that are going to help you win that game because you cannot win this game with Quentin Dormady. You have to get those big plays. I mean, McFarland in his first game back, coming back from injury, had those two long 50-yard scampers. Like, that's exactly what San Antonio needs. And if they don't have McFarland back, I'd be worried. I'd be worried sick because I don't know. I just don't trust Dormady in big games.
Yeah, San Antonio is going to be all about speed, and then I think St. Louis has strength. So it's just going to come down to how the game plays and see from there. But I'm personally taking St. Louis in this game. I'm not sure about y'all. I know Ducky will never take St. Louis as long as he lives.
Nope.
I think St. Louis has a slight edge, but really it depends. If Garbers plays, I think San Antonio gets revenge because look, I mean, it's a very similar scene where St. Louis beat San Antonio twice. Birmingham beat Michigan twice. It is really difficult to win 3 games against the same team in one season, especially in a league like this where the talent is all very, very close. Like the parity in this league is pretty impressive, and outside of teams like Memphis and Houston, anybody can beat anybody on any given day. So we're looking at. I think it's hard to say, but I wouldn't bet money on the Battlehawks and Stallions both going to the championship. I think one of them loses this weekend.
Yeah.
I
and
think-
you
That's
look
what. So
at
you're
the
basically
scores.
saying what I tweeted out. Is that
Yeah,
AJ
I'm stealing content as usual, Jake. Yes.
I'm
If
taking
AJ
St.
doesn't
Louis.
start,
Hey,
If AJ
when did
doesn't
you get
start,
hired by the
no.
UFL?
That's crazy. Ducky, what did you say?
I said if AJ doesn't start, the Battlehawks win. What?
I want to see it happen now too.
It will.
Wilkins comes
Manny
out,
Wilkins
balls
runs
out.
for 300 yards.
Yeah, hell yeah, sign him up.
I mean, if the Renegades picked off Wilkins 3 times, I can only imagine how many picks the Brahmas would get. But anyways, I mean, hey, it's going to be an exciting weekend. I'm looking forward to it. We already know 3 of the 4 starting quarterbacks because Martinez obviously going to start, Etling starting for Michigan, AJ is clearly starting for St. Louis, and now we're just waiting on word of Garbers or Dormady, and that's going to be a major decider there. But any last thoughts here on these upcoming playoff games in the UFL?
They should be fun. The fact that we
Oh, yeah.
saw a preview of these games and both of them were 1 point difference at the end tells you a lot of what you need to know. Again, I'm suspect on the Brahmas St. Louis game because the Garbers thing. So that one, I don't know. We'll see. But Michigan Stallions, if the Stallions weren't just playing with them, I wouldn't count out the Panthers just yet. As much as I propped up Birmingham earlier, if there was ever a year that they were going into the playoffs and looked defeatable, it's this year. But it's up to the Panthers. Can they do it?
How crazy was it too that both games this weekend between these previews came down to a missed field goal? Like, not too often you see that in back-to-back games with 50-plus yarders. And gotta give credit to St. Louis special teams unit because they've tipped and blocked so many field goals and punts this year. It's been pretty impressive.
How far was the San Antonio field goal attempt?
It was, I believe, 51 yards, give or take.
So pretty close, 53 and then 51 for San Antonio and 53 for Panthers. So yeah, that's crazy. Not only that and not a missed field goal, but from basically the same.
Jake sounds like he's in an alien spaceship right now. And now he's frozen.
Yeah. Damn it! I couldn't get my screenshot stuff up fast enough. Your face was perfect on that. Later, don't you worry.
Jake, when the Panthers lose for the third straight time against the Stallions. Oh man, we're having too much fun. But I thought something to maybe touch on a little bit here as we wrap up. I mean, I don't know how many other topics we had today, but thought something that was interesting was the attendance in the league. It's something we haven't discussed a ton, but I think it's something that's worth having a conversation about when you look at, certain markets like St. Louis, like we talked about. Thank God they're in the postseason because they have had some tremendous numbers. And some of these markets, man, I mean, there's some question marks.
I mean, it's a new league. I'll say this. Oh man, Birmingham, they really hate me when I say things like this, but I would hope that there would maybe be a little bit more enthusiasm about a back-to-back champion team going into a third playoffs with only one loss on the season. That I will say, I would hope to see a little bit more. Memphis,
I think we'll get a lot for this playoff game.
I think so too.
I think it'll be the best crowd of the year there.
Memphis, I think, they struggled a little bit last year, but I think they struggled for the same reasons this year. Their record. Same reasons as Houston. I mean, you're asking a lot of people, one, to go to more football games, spend money. On top of that, you're asking them to come out and spend time and money in the heat in the South. And then you're asking them to do that for some teams that aren't really playing that great. And so to me, that's definitely going to impact your attendance. Now, on the flip side of it, I don't know what the situation is, so I'm not going to speculate. But when I look at DC, for instance, I question the numbers that are being reported. Not to say that the people reporting them are lying. I just think that maybe they're being fluffed up before they get to certain people. So I don't want anyone.
I mean, there's a couple of games where the stadium looked a lot emptier than the numbers that were posted. I'll say that.
I think somebody made a point of, I think they said they were supposed to have 13,000 people at the game yesterday, right, in D.C. It's in a 20,000 seat stadium. That stadium didn't look half full to me, let alone over half full.
Right.
Maybe it's tickets sold versus attending. Attendance never really mattered that much to me. I just want to see a damn football game. So whether there's people in the stands or not, or this and that, yes, would it be great for them all to be packed? 100%. But let's not deny that, the Oakland A's, for instance.
Rep, you don't turn into football to watch the people in the stands?
I mean,
you actually want to watch the product on the field?
It depends if you're Markcast or not.
That's
if you're Markcast, that's the only thing you care about is the attendance, because right now that's what's getting them clicks. But
that's nuts.
Just turn on the TV and look straight to the stands.
Ducky, This might be
Dude,
your
it's
last episode.
Two Birminghams in here.
Everyone wanted Ducky to talk. This is what happens.
Yeah, the one time James hosts. Let's just
Dude, he's so stupid. Oh my god. The dumbest guy ever.
So looking at
You're
the
talking about Mark? Mark from Mark
Yep.
Cast?
Marky Mark and the Funky Bunch.
And Mark's a cool guy. Leave him alone, all right?
look.
52 years old and you're on Twitter complaining about that stuff. That's crazy.
Hey, that's
I
what
will say-
$80,000 in journalism degree gets you.
All right, we're done.
That won't hit too close to home for me, man.
He's gonna have a field day with
It's
this.
only Monday.
We're going straight into that group chat, and they're just gonna start talking about us.
It's being clipped right now. So,
Look.
I mean, what were you going to say, James?
What I was
Well-
looking at was the average attendance ladder, where St. Louis has averaged 34.3 thousand fans, DC in second with 14.1, but some of the numbers are a little questionable. San Antonio at 11.8, Birmingham at 10.1, and then the bottom four teams are all under 10K. Arlington at 9.8, Michigan at 8.1, Houston at 7, and then Memphis at 6.8, 6.9 if you round it up. So 4 markets, and we're looking, like you said, 3 of those 4 markets under 10K were teams that didn't make the playoffs and had pretty poor records. Michigan's a market where, like, that was just such a disaster this offseason of trying to secure Ford Field, and then the whole merger happens, and then you have the whole ticket issues where you're trying to transfer from USFL to XFL. Like, there were so many things. Jake, I'm sure you can get into some of that if you wanted to. And then to have 3 home games to open up your season in a market where you didn't start selling single game tickets until 17 days before the first game. That to me, we could talk about the attendance, and yes, are there cities that should be doing better? Absolutely. But this is not entirely the city's fault. I'd say a lot of it falls on the league because 1, the merger really messed with a lot of things, and then 2, they're just poor execution in some of these spots, the lack of marketing, the lack of excitement for like getting these markets excited about their teams. James, I'm sure you can relate. I mean, didn't seem like there was a ton in Arlington. I've been to almost every city this season, and there's been I don't see any billboards. I don't see anything for these teams.
Yeah, and so I was going to say, out of all teams, I think that Arlington needs to bear the cross and admit that we're the biggest disappointment. I mean, coming fresh off a championship, we have a metroplex of 8 million people. Everybody's been dying to watch the Cowboys win a Super Bowl. The Renegades come back. In their first full season, they actually win a championship. And somehow the XFL teams get a pass from everybody. When I'm like, we have all 8 teams located here in the hub, boots on the ground. We have marketing teams based out of here. Like, there's been no promotion. If I didn't follow this league as closely as I do, like, I would have zero idea it exists. My neighbors don't know it exists until I tell them. People, I go out to sports bars, they have zero idea it's even on. I have to ask them to put on the game anywhere I go to. And I mean, I've been in contact with some of the sales staff in Arlington because I've seen like USFL teams like Birmingham, they had things like mini schedule pamphlets and the flyers and stuff. And I was like, hey, if you guys have any of this for the Renegades, I'd love to go pass it out. And what I got back was the merger was so rushed. Some teams got promotional items. Most teams didn't. Whatever we had, it's, labeled the wrong league, yada, yada, yada. And so I'm just waiting for finally a full off season where both sides can come together, because especially within the hub, we have teams practicing in local high schools. We have to be getting the attention of the people.
I'm with you on that, James.
So I'm going to paint the picture a little bit differently here for you guys, because to me, when I look at it, again, do you want more people at the games? Yes, you do. But when I look at other leagues, let's just use the WNBA as an example, right? All eyes are on Caitlin Clark. Everybody's talking about Caitlin Clark, the Indiana Fever, selling most tickets of any team in the league. They're averaging 15,000 per game. So when you put that in context for the WNBA that's been around over 20 years, and you compare that to the UFL, to where even at best, if you want to throw in the XFL and the USFL and the XFL last year, at best been around 5 years, and some of their markets are outpacing, leagues that have been around. Similar point with the MLS, right? Yeah, they're smaller stadiums. We can't fill up DC, sure. Newer league, different situation. I'm not too now. If these games were at like hundreds of people, maybe 1,000 people, or if all the games looked like Vegas last year, yeah, I'd be a little bit worried. But truth be told, I think you got to start somewhere. Maybe some of these things move around, but it doesn't seem like they're going to do it yet, which is good. I don't think they should shift people around. That's only going to make people look at the league like, wow, if they can't, I mean, they're already moving teams and doing this and that and the other thing. My hope for this would be, like you said, I think both of the Jameses here. You got the merger done. You end the season, and you go right into promoting for next season. One thing that I saw that they did already, which is nice, is they have reserves for season ticket reserves open for season ticket holders. I'm a little curious why because I'll be honest, last year with the XFL, the week that game ended, they called me like, hey, you ready to put down all your money? This year they only wanted the $50, which maybe there's some strategy there. I think that's going to help for the case in point that I think a couple people mentioned here. Michigan, you didn't even have your tickets on sale until just a few weeks before the game. But if season tickets are already on reserve now, it's $50. You slap it down. It's nice and easy. And then, once we get to the NFL season, my expectation, we'll see. My expectation is that we're going to see them peppering UFL ads all through the NFL, just like we saw with season 1 and 2 of the USFL. We didn't really get as much of that last year. We did with the USFL, but then it was weird. Everything was weird because of the merger. We'll see. We'll see. And then records. I mean, there's not much you can do about records, right? If the Houston Roughnecks still suck next year, then yeah, you know what? I think the attendance is going to still take a hit. But if they rebound and they come out with three game winning streak, yeah, I think we're going to get over 10K easy, whether it's 95 degrees out or 65 degrees out. Houston, we don't win a lot of things. So if you win, they're going to show up.
Now,
No,
Ruff,
you're right.
I think it's interesting you mentioned the WNBA because the Dallas WNBA team actually plays in Arlington. And lately, they've had a 3-year wait for their season tickets, and they're having to move to Dallas to a bigger venue due to huge demand.
Wow.
So, I mean, there's sports fans out here. Yep. You just got to reach them.
Yep.
Yeah, and I think that'll be nice to see, like you said, look, there's so many people talking about we got to move franchises, we got to get them to different cities. Like, no, we need to let a league actually be established for 2-3 years in certain markets. And yes, should Memphis be doing better? Absolutely. Yes, should Arlington be doing better? Absolutely. Should Michigan be doing better? Absolutely. But again, with all the stuff that happened this offseason and the league kind of putting themselves in a bit of a hole rather than these cities specifically, let's give a whole year and a whole offseason now to these ticketing teams, to these marketing teams to go out there, to go get new fans in and really reach the casuals because that's what you have to do.
I disagree. I think we should let 50-year-olds on Twitter dictate what the league does.
I mean, there are 50-year-olds in the league who are dictating what happens, but yes.
Not on Twitter.
And I'm just saying, people talk about St. Louis all the time, but St. Louis hasn't sold out a single game yet. So
honestly, I'd relocate them. Get them out of there. I'd maybe Los Angeles.
I was gonna say.
Yep.
I saw somebody talking about moving the team to San Diego, and I wanted to be like, "Yeah, send the Battlehawks." Just
no, someone was talking about moving Birmingham to San Diego, which is like the dumbest possible thing.
Oh my gosh, that was that Bears dude on Twitter. Go follow that guy. He posts some funny stuff. If you want to laugh, go follow that guy. I don't know his name. It's Bears Parade or something.
That's such a moronic take, if I'm being honest. Birmingham, look, like yes, their numbers could be better, but they've been consistent and they've been better than some of the other markets in this league. I'll tell you that. I think Birmingham is good for spring football, and after being there, after experiencing the game at Protective Stadium, for me, it's more they just have to find a way to market the casuals in that market because we should be getting 20,000 a game in that market. I blame that more on the league than on the city.
Yeah,
to an extent.
Yeah, you got to get the casual fans. That's why St. Louis has such a big fan base because they're all casuals.
Oh man. Well, any final thoughts on attendance here before we wrap things up?
No, but what a fun.
I mean, I'll go to bat for Detroit a little bit.
The one show I talk, James is hosting.
Yeah, you guys are not seeing me next week. This is my last show ever. I'm never doing this again. I can't believe you guys convinced me to host.
It was your idea this week.
No, it was. Look, Zach's out of town. Ref, you've been all over the place. I was like, hey, let's oh wow, look at this. Nice little super comment.
Hey, sign you up.
The man, the myth, the legend.
And you know what? That's not a bad point, though. 8,000 to 9,000 in attendance for a market that had essentially no runway to ticket sales, and are coming. You know, they made it to the playoffs last year, but they still went into it 4-6. I'd say they did well. And Jake, you were there for those games. James, you were as well. I feel like attendance was going up as the season went on too. Both probably for a couple of reasons. One, people were learning about it, and two, the team was doing well, which helps.
Yeah, they closed
and people
on
were learning about it, not thanks to the league. The league did not help sell the team at all, though. But for next year, now that the Panthers, tickets are in the database with the whole league, that should definitely help. But I mean, nobody really wants to mention the fact that the Panthers actually had better attendance through the middle parts of this year than they did last year. Not that it's saying much. Like, I don't like these sub 10,000, in attendance. But again, polling viewership, second right now, only to St. Louis, and they're insane because, well, they hate Kroenke and they lost their team. So, of course, they're going to latch on to whatever pro football that they have. But for the Panthers to actually be second in viewership is good, regardless of what people want to say about attendance. Viewership is what brings home the bacon. Panthers are helping to fund the UFL through viewership numbers. So, would I like to see a little bit louder Ford Field next year? Absolutely. But, maybe now if the league actually commits to having the Panthers, maybe they can stop acting like they absolutely hate us, and maybe that, we can see a little bit more. But, until UFL Jeff goes away, maybe not.
Absolutely. No, we are grateful for everything people do in the league, and we're proud to cover it, and we're looking forward to season 2 and the great things beyond. But heading into the final moments of this show, any other final thoughts here on heading into it? Well, not week 10 or week 11, but the postseason, I should say. Or are we good to wrap things up here?
I'll end it with this. I'm still in shock. 100% back-to-back 100% refs law seasons. 90% first season. 96.666 repeating percent over the last 3 years. Only 1 week where refs law was defeated. Better record than the Birmingham Stallions. Please, for the love of God, let the Michigan Panthers and the Houston Roughnecks win on the same week next season. That's all I have to say.
I actually just got a little piece of news, so I'm glad we got this before it went off. Chase Garbers is day-to-day, so something to monitor. He's not ruled out. That's good news if you're the Brahmas. But, James, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, my fiance was coming in. But I guess my last thoughts on the season are Holden Ahlers deserves a starting job somewhere. And that may be
I think he should be all
NFL, but we'll see. We'll see. We
will see indeed. Well, to wrap things up, before we forget, points. I still don't know what these are for, but this is the first time in a while I'm going to give these out. And refs law making such a glorious comeback. I got to give you a solid 12 points for just the incredible
number
showing
of wins
there.
We were supposed to have this year, by the way. Thank you.
So, Ducky, with all of your input today, I'm going to give you negative 50 points for talking about the negativity coming from a 50-year-old on Twitter.
I would like to see what Jake gets then for his comment.
Jake, how many you're going to get...
I'm going to keep count.
Well, the population difference, so...
Jake, you're going to get about 3.5 Birmingham's worth of negative 50. So you're going to get a solid 7 points for joining us today and your input. So thank you, Jake. James Baker, we appreciate you joining us and staying on for the full show as a panelist. This was a lot of fun. And in honor of hashtag Free15, I'm going to give you 15 points.
Let's go.
Nice. Ref, did you ever give Hijack his 1 point?
Who?
It was some dude in the comments that made me laugh like 3 weeks ago. So I gave him a point.
Hijack. Hold on. All right, I'm adding him to the list.
Hijack is a go. You haven't seen him on Twitter?
Boom.
Let's go.
Added him to the list there. James, how many points are you getting yourself now?
Oh, I'm gonna give myself negative 10 points for being a horrible host today.
Well, I'll give you 5 of those back.
All right, -5. Let's go.
Dude, this I'm dreading having to add this mess up. Look at this. It's half numbers, and this is
That's crazy. Hey, give me all of Mel's points. She's gone.
I'm gonna figure out what to do with those. We'll figure out. Maybe we'll do a raffle for Mel's points at the end.
Have we figured out who's winning a date with her yet?
Yeah, who wants to win a date with Mel's? Yeah, let's say a perfect time to start that.
I'm out of here.
Here's what you do.
I'm out of here.
Put your comments down below on why you should win a date with Mel's.
Win a mate.
We should not bring up Mel's anymore.
All right, moving on. Look, this has been quite the show. Appreciate everybody tuning in. Really enjoyed all the commentary today, even the ones that were just slightly out of line. And Chris Mason, you are the winner because you tuned in today, so we appreciate you. And look, that about wraps it up for Around the UFL today. So make sure, one, that you tune into these damn playoff games this weekend because we want these ratings to be the best playoff ratings we've ever seen. We want the first games on ABC on Saturday. The second game is on Fox on Sunday. So make sure you guys are tuned in and make sure you're following everybody here and getting locked in with PF Newsroom, the #1 source in spring football news across the planet. And until next time, guys, this has been an episode of Around the UFL.
We can't leave this one on air.